I'm sure you've all seen this chart or something like it, but the punchline being that you can only pick 2 out of these 3 traits. It can either be fast, high quality, or affordable, but not all 3. Always sacrificing something for another. What will convert a one-off client into a forever client? One that's a good fit and works with you consistently. Because the quality of your work, unfortunately, is not enough to stand out. But I want you to walk away with knowing how to make your clients feel that it's not only possible, but that you can have all 3 with your work. Welcome to those of you who are new. My name is Drew. I cover all things photography, film, videography, and just creative things in general. So if that's up your alley, please consider subscribing. So we'll be breaking down each of these traits and then also talk about real, specific, actual things that you can actually do to execute these concepts. So even though my tips will primarily be covering the content creator life side of things, these conceptually will still apply to any field of work. So I want to share with you a story of a real life example that happened to me just last month and is also the entire reason that I'm making this video. So about a month ago, I had an editing project with a client that I can't disclose due to NDA. Let's just say it's a good product for people who like to take hot baths outside, and we'll leave it at that. Okay, so I had this editing project with this particular client, and I had already finished up my work far ahead of schedule, which is always a good thing. So we were supposed to be golden, but then I had left on an out-of-country trip. I did say that I would be gone and when I would be back. Their deadline for going live was quickly approaching, and last minute, some executives had made some decisions that called for a complete rehaul edit that simply needed to be done right away. And all this going on while I was on a trip to Bali and Australia shooting for a completely different project. So of course, disaster had struck, and of course it was perfectly matching the same 15-hour flight home that I did not have service for, and they could not get a hold of me. So the second that I land, I am met with a bombardment of a urgent crisis. Long story short, I was very transparent with them, and I couldn't get around to those edits until the following week. And they opted to use a different contractor to make those urgent edits. But the next day, the client comes back to me and asks me to actually do those edits myself. We then have a meeting, and let me just give you some context here. This particular creative director, who is very good at their job, this is not throwing shade, they're just the type that gives a laundry list of edits, which is fine because they're doing their job, and also just isn't very complimentary or liberal with praise. So he says, "You're really saving our butts here. The second contractor we used did such a horrible job, we knew that we just needed to have you back on the project, even though you didn't have an opening. Their work was so bad, we don't even want to show you what they did." I did find it, and it is really bad. Then they continue to say, "The level of your work is exactly what we need, and frankly, you're much faster. We are way past our deadline and asked for even more time to accommodate you and your schedule." So that was a huge compliment. And here they adapted an entire campaign and pushed the date back, all so that I could work on it. And again, me being gone was communicated way ahead of time. It was just a bunch of last minute stuff. Okay, so that story. There's a lot of things that we can pull from that, but that is kind of what's bringing up this concept and why I wanted to make this video at all. Breaking this down to a business perspective, a returning customer is an enormous compliment, and a consistent, loyal customer is a fan for life. Turning these one-off clients into something that can be a relationship, which is far more lucrative and honestly healthier for both your business and for that client. So let's go ahead and break down that chart from earlier about the perfect trifecta. The holy trinity of business is fast, affordable, and good quality. So how can we go about improving each of these? So let's address each of those one by one. Speed. Obviously, rushing something is going to lower the quality, and that's what we don't want. So we need to find ways in your workflow that optimize speed without sacrificing quality. And obviously that's kind of a no-brainer, but I still wanted to share some of my very specific tools and hacks and examples that help me be a faster editor. And just these simple little things have helped me stay ahead of schedule while also still retaining a high level of quality. As far as video editing and a video editing workflow, I like to take all of the footage and dump it all into one composition. I can see everything all in one timeline. And this is where I will make the majority of cuts and edits. This is where I will basically cull the good stuff, trim out the bad stuff. Another bonus tip here is to resist the urge to rewatch your entire video when you've only made a few changes. Rewatches are obviously necessary, but keeping them to a minimum certainly helps, because however long your video is how much extra time you've added on, when really you don't need to watch the entire thing for these small changes. And that process is tremendously sped up with some shortcuts and some little tools that do help. Not sponsored and not affiliated, but I have been enjoying using this Torbox, which is a little shortcut tool. Mine's actually customized into borderline being an abomination, and you'll kind of see what I mean. But I even use it to edit these YouTube videos. Here, how this film renders. And no, you do not need to buy this at all. It's just a nonsensical, overpriced bop it. So let me tell you how to do this for free with what you already have. Essentially, here's the shortcuts that I'm doing. With just 3 customized buttons on your keyboard, you can do the exact same thing. For most video editors, space is the pause play button, which is where your thumb sits, and naturally, these 2 other fingers fall kind of in the same comfortable pattern, which is DC space. And why I've done this is it's a comfortable position for your hand, and it's a helpful little reminder. You can think of D as delete and C to make a cut in that specific clip, and depending on your mouse, here I'm using the MS Master 3S, which is by far my favorite mouse. I actually have a whole review on that if you want to check that out. And yes, even years later, I am still using that same mouse. The point is that it's got these 2 extra little buttons. Okay, so maybe I lied, maybe it's 5 buttons. Okay, sorry, whatever. And very easily, all I've done is bound the left of these buttons to trim everything from the left up until that point, and the other button to do the same, trimming everything from the right. And just with a few simple buttons, I can blaze through editing so fast. Then I'll take that whole timeline, label that as my base, which is just the good stuff. And here I can actually paste my color corrections if they can be done globally. Obviously, if lighting changes, we need to adjust those specifically. But generally when I'm shooting, it's all within like the same hour. The lighting doesn't change too much. And that already just saves a ton because all those color corrections can just be corrected then immediately and easily. Alternatively, you can also use a bunch of adjustment layers and slap that over the entire thing if you need to make global edits. That also can be a really good time-saving tool. Another helpful tool is to have your presets and effects all tied into adjustment layers as well. So if you have a subtle zoom in, you can just slap that on top of everything and you don't have to worry about adjusting keyframes on individual clips. Now, regarding quality, raising the quality of your work. Just doing more does not equal better. So there is a diminishing return on how much time can be equated to how better something gets. So really, we're not actually talking about the quality of work. We're really talking about efficiency. It's actually about finding something small that leads to a larger result. So here is the theme that you can apply to all things across the board. Find a low cost for something that creates a high impact. So low cost, high impact choices. A really good example of this is actually in sound design. Sound design is probably one of the most underutilized aspects of creating content. There's this fun little saying that's in the filmmaking industry, which is, if it sounds good, it looks good. And here's what I mean. Here, I'm just recording a quick selfie video on my phone, which is objectively not as good as my camera up here. But because I'm still pulling the audio from my nice microphone, this is probably still a better experience than this. And this is what I mean. Still using the nice camera, but we're actually using the in-body audio from the camera itself. And it probably doesn't sound very good. Let me fix this. Okay, so between the two, you probably have a better experience. And there's actually some science behind this too, because your brain can process sounds faster and sooner than it can process visuals, which is why so much time and attention really goes into sound design. And you can actually take that a whole step further by watching an animated movie. This is a fun little exercise that I think is really good if you want to hone this craft. Watch an animated movie, and why I say that, all of the characters and models are rigged in software, therefore they can't make actual sound, so all of the sounds and effects were thoughtfully added with intention and on purpose. So what you can do is actually mute the movie and think about what should be there, what sounds you would expect to hear, and then play that same scene with it unmuted, and you can list the sounds that you actually do hear, and I guarantee you there's going to be way more than you thought there should be, because that is how much time and attention goes into sound design to pull off a very professional, immersive experience. And sound design is one of those things that's a low cost, high impact. It's just nice quality of life things that people don't expect and aren't even consciously aware of, but still feel the difference. So still talking about efficiency and quality. Think about every touch point that you have with your client. Through what communication means or channels are you using to interface with your client, and even the final delivery of the finished product. My point is to tailor it to what's going to be a longer lasting impact. And let me hit on that last one that I mentioned, which is delivering final products. I'm embarrassed to say this, but I've been using Google Drive for way too long. And even in the last years that I've been using Dropbox exclusively, those certainly get the job done, but they're kind of sterile, ugly, lifeless folders. And remember, the theme here is low cost, high impact. So that can easily be improved by using a client delivery service. And the example that we have today is Pic-Time, who is actually the sponsor of this portion of the video. Since it costs less than your Spotify account, I'm counting this as a low cost, high impact choice. Pic-Time is a service that allows you to quickly and easily share your online digital deliverables. And it does all this in an automated, gorgeous gallery. High quality previews load very quickly, which is a huge thing because with Dropbox, it would always take a second for videos to buffer, to actually view the file at the correct quality. Sometimes clients would have to download the file before they could even watch it correctly, which is just an extra step I'm making the client do when I really don't have to. And there's always a sense of paranoia that the low res preview would somehow be a reflection of the quality of my work, even though really it's just Dropbox being slow. Clients can even purchase customized prints from that gallery directly, which you do get a commission off of. And don't worry, you can control what's public and private, what needs an access code to get into, but that store aspect of the service is something that I see being really beneficial, especially from B2C. Clients that are average humans, like for weddings or for family shoots, clients that have the intent to display that work in real life. And you guys can get a free additional month to your subscription by using my referral link below, which I do get a small commission from. So thank you for your support if you end up using it. Now for that last section, price. In the world of a competitive market, it's always tricky to figure out price. Pricing is actually my least favorite conversation that I have with being a freelance creator. Almost makes me not want to do it at all because I'm just a creative person who just wants to make creative things. And I feel like I'm bogged down by money. I wish someone else could do all that for me. Whatever. But here's the thing. You truly have to charge what you're worth. And it's okay to dismiss some clients who can't see that value. If certain clients keep begging for discounts and wanting things cheaper and cheaper, it's actually somewhat offensive. It means that the value that they're getting from your work isn't your work, it's your price. And while for some that can be a good thing, it actually ends up somewhat diluting what clients actually deserve because there's so much behind the scenes that goes on in the life of freelance work. If you're a freelancer, you're not just the camera person or the editor. You're also your own manager, your own boss, your project manager, graphic designer, marketer. Every single job of a fully functioning business is now what you've got to do. All of which takes time, all of which costs creativity, all of which should be bundled up and built into the cost of what you're charging. I have a photographer friend who goes above and beyond what is expected for a shoot. She even goes as far as getting the models, getting the locations, even building out the whole campaign herself. And while all of that is amazing, that's exactly what a client would want and would make their job easier. However, those things should be charged for because that will then be expected behavior built into the cost of what you're already doing. And that will get old quick if you don't feel that it's worth the time. So be confident in pricing because art is subjective at the end of the day. So sometimes people don't really cognitively understand the work that goes all behind the scenes. Lastly, the cherry on top, be consistently good, be consistently easy to communicate with, consistently pleasant and a delight to work with. Treat your interactions as if 90% of why they use you is for your personality, and the 10% happens to be because you make great stuff. Having that healthy balance between those three traits we talked about of speed, quality, and fair compensation, that healthy balance is what creates professionalism, trust, and converts one-off clients into these forever, permanent eternal clients that you love to work with. Now, I want this channel to be a community of people who help each other build up the art world, build up the freelance world. So by all means, if you have any tips or tricks for efficient services that you use, time-saving hacks that you've used that are super helpful, or even just simple professional etiquette hacks, please by all means share all of that in the comments below so that we can all learn and grow together. If you like this video or learned something new, like it, as it actually makes a difference. Do not forget to subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks so much for watching.